If you're looking for another great podcast to listen to after this one, I'd like to recommend SheMD. SheMD is on a mission to change the world of women's health by educating one woman at a time with the knowledge and expertise to be her own health advocate. Sadly, a lot of women's health concerns aren't taken seriously, and even more, health research that includes women is still not standard today. So you need to be your own advocate. Each episode of SheMD features conversations with high-profile guests and medical specialists offering empowering knowledge and advice. From fertility and PCOS to mental health and menopause, SheMD tackles all the major health concerns, all from the lens of a woman. Check out SheMD wherever you get your podcasts today. This is The Planted Runner. I'm Coach Claire Bartholic. Let's face it, even if this is your favorite time of year, the holidays can be stressful. But when you're trying to navigate sharing a meal with people who don't share your choices, it can get extra tricky. When you're plant-based and your family and friends aren't, it can feel like you're the odd one out. If you're hosting and you're not making turkey on Thanksgiving, your meat-eating guests are likely to grumble. If you're a guest, you might go hungry unless you show up with a vegan meal to share. Is there any way to make the holiday gathering go a little smoother for everyone this year? Let's find out. Welcome to The Planted Runner. I'm Coach Claire Bartholic, and my mission is to help you improve your running, your mindset, and your life with science-backed training and plant-based nutrition. Today, I'm talking with a very special guest, Nick Cutsumpas, also known as Farmer Nick. Nick is an Emmy-winning plant-based gardener, landscaper, and plant coach. I invited him on the show to have a conversation all about how to have a happy and healthy holiday when you're plant-based and your family isn't. We go over meal ideas, whether you are a guest or if you're hosting, potluck do's and don'ts, and how to best respond to common questions without being that angry vegan. And I couldn't help myself, we also talk a little bit about gardening and houseplants, two more things Nick and I have in common. If you are listening to this on the day it comes out and you're American, happy Thanksgiving. I hope you are celebrating with the people you love and can reflect on everything you are thankful for. If you're not American, or if you're listening to this after Thanksgiving, this will still apply to the holidays in general, specifically if you're plant-based. And of course, don't forget to stay tuned all the way to the end of the conversation for another Mental Strength Minute. Fortify your mind in 60 seconds or less. And now, my conversation with Farmer Nick. Welcome to The Planted Runner, Nick.
Thanks so much for having me, Claire. Very excited to be here. And obviously, we met in the trip out in Greece, which was so fun. And when you mentioned the podcast, I was like, I have to do this. We got to get this together.
I'm so excited. Yeah. For those who don't know, we were on a vegan tour of Greece, which both of those things are very cool. So it was so nice to not have to worry about what to eat. Everything was planned for us. So there was always something delicious. So, what was your favorite part?
Oh, good question. I mean, that more than 3-hour hike was amazing through Santorini. But I would have to say I really liked the Athens food tour. That was pretty spectacular.
Ooh, yeah, that was great. Yeah.
Yeah.
I did not run while we were there, but we got 25,000 steps that day, I think, on that hike. So yeah, it was absolutely, it was ambitious, but it was good. I had a good time.
Ambitious, but good. For those interested, Getaway Co., amazing company, lots of vegan travel all over the world.
Yeah. Yeah. So I brought you on this show not only because I want to see you again, but because I think it's the perfect time of year with the holidays coming up to talk about what it's like to be plant-based over the holidays. Some people who've been doing it for years, it's no big deal, but there's a lot of people who are new or transitioning, and they might want some tips and tricks. So what are your favorite tips for being plant-based over the holidays?
Okay, a few different things here. Number one is be prepared to talk to family. And when I say talk to family, I don't mean combative talking, right? I mean, bring them into the conversation, allow them to learn, even if it's frustrating. Because I will tell you, and I'm sure, Claire, you've experienced this too, there are family members who will, to this day, and I've been vegan for 5 years, will say, oh, but you can have just like a little bit of turkey, right? Or like, oh, fish is fine, right? And I'm like, well, no, it's still no animal products, right? But being able to not be reactive to some of those conversations has helped me and decreased my stress, which during the holidays I think is so important. So that's more of the mental emotional side of the experience. From a practicality perspective, my strategy is twofold. Number one, always bring something delicious.
Yes.
Always. If you can bring something that is outstanding, that everyone says, oh my gosh, I need seconds of that, you've inspired someone subconsciously without saying, oh, try my vegan dish. Don't even call it a vegan dish. Just say, hey, I made this. Or don't even say, just put it out there. And when you watch people, oh my God, who made the string beans, this, and that? Oh, I did. I actually, normally they have bacon. I didn't use bacon. I used a substitute, or I did this or did that. So many things can be achieved from a plant-based perspective by just making good food.
Absolutely.
Right? So
Absolutely.
that's a big one for me. And then the third thing I would say, which I always do no matter what, is just like pregame a few meals here and there, right? If you're not sure, if you don't have a family who's super embracing of it, or you're not 100% sure what's going to be on the table, just make a few things at home that you really love, right? Don't take the enjoyment out of the holiday just because your family and friends might not be eating the same as you. Make the thing that you love the day before, the next day after, whatever it might be, just so you have something really, really good.
Yeah, I like that piece of advice because, what are the holidays for? Is it really about the food, or is it about the family? Is it about the conversations? Is it about being together, And no one wants to be, well, I hope that no one wants to be that angry vegan at the table that is lecturing people and saying like, well, turkey, this and that, like I do not view the world that way, but there are certain people out there that feel like they need to educate people. What's your point of view on that?
The education side is tricky, right? Because there's some things people just don't want to know. Like they don't want to know about slaughterhouses. They don't want to know about these other issues. So being able to educate them in a non-condescending way, being able to educate them in a way that is productive and have a few couple statistics here and there that you're not going to shove down someone's throat, but just do something that is positive, right? Oh, actually it's more like this. And I eat this way, not because of the damage, but more so because of how it makes me feel, because most people are going to be inspired by what's in it for them. I've been vegan for 5 years. I was motivated by the environment and the animals. Health was a bonus. But if you appeal to someone's health first, how it can help them, then you start kind of introducing some other things that maybe are out of their normal scope, but are still very beneficial for them and the planet.
Yeah, absolutely. So I've been plant-based for 12 years now. And so I've got it down pat, but I have to tell you this year, I have been invited to a potluck. And so we have a spreadsheet. So it's really nice that everybody has filled.
Love a spreadsheet.
Yeah. So we filled everything out. And honestly, there's only going to be like 2 things that I can eat. So
and they're not proteins, I'm sure.
No. So, they're making mashed potatoes with butter, like all of this stuff. And it's okay. But I think at first, honestly, even 12 years later, I did feel a little reactive because these people know me and love me. But then I was like, you know what? I'm going to make amazing desserts and I'm going to eat ahead of time.
Good. And you have to treat yourself, right? You can't be the only one that's not enjoying it the same way. And, some of those kind of fringe, could be plant-based, could not be dishes like mashed potatoes, for example.
Right.
Sometimes I'm not above messaging that person if I have a good relationship, like, hey, by the way, could we make this with vegan butter? It really tastes the same. Miyoko's is great. There's so many options. No one's going to know the difference. Yeah. Just to add some flexibility to it.
Absolutely. Well, I will say though, I have had a great experience already. So in the Thanksgiving season, because I have a group of women that I hang out with. It's a book club, but it's really just about eating and having wine.
An eating club.
An eating club.
I like that.
And so we did a Friendsgiving just a couple of days ago, 100% vegan. It's always vegan. Even though I'm the only vegan, we've just always done it that way. And it just makes me feel so loved, So if the real Thanksgiving isn't vegan, I'm okay with it. I've had mine.
Hey, you got your fix. It's great. That's awesome.
Yeah. So are you hosting this year or are you going to be a guest?
So
in your new house?
Well, that's why you don't see any plants behind me because this new house is under construction right now. But we will be going to my family's house in New York. Oh, nice. And the families, it's interesting dynamic because there's some that are kind of plant curious, a couple that have done some stints with veganism, and no one will be fully vegan except me at the table, because not my family's or me and Anna, but the family is very supportive. My mom especially, and there will be options for me. They encourage me to, hey Nick, we're doing turkey, but if you want to bring a protein that you love, great. The problem is when I bring these things, they eat it all.
Yes.
Like it happens every year. And I'm like, okay, you said I could bring it for me, but I only made enough for maybe like 3 people. And now it's gone because it was really, really good. So
I know. So what do you do in that situation? Do you like hoard your own food? And I don't know.
I think my strategy this year, I'm going to have to make a backup one, leave it in the car frozen or something,
There you go.
just to sneak out if it gets too popular. But it's happened at Christmas. It's happened at Thanksgiving. Like, oh, this was really good. And I love that they love it. But at the same time, I'm like, oh my God, I'm really hungry now. So it can be tricky.
So make more.
Yes.
Make more. So a lot of times in the holidays, I would love to talk a little bit about healthy eating in general, because, the people who listen to my show are runners, they're into health and fitness, but still sometimes they struggle with, this time of year, exercising, treating themselves a little too much, or lots of the standard things that happen to us around the holidays. So what are your favorite ways to, number one, de-stress? And then what are your favorite ways to treat yourself this time of year?
Whew. Good question. I have had a hard time for about 30 years of my 32 years on this planet treating myself. I was kind of one of these guys that was of the mindset that like, oh yeah, suffering is good. I need to do this, and adversity is great, right? It makes you stronger. But around the holidays, for me, I go on like almost like a taper, right? If you're preparing for a race, where it's like, I'm going to sit on this couch and I'm going to eat and I'm going to talk to my family and I'm going to watch football and I'm not going to worry about what I'm eating or moving or anything like that. I really think that that's important, but I also, in that in between Thanksgiving and Christmas, I really try and stay active if I can.
Yeah.
Because what I don't want is that 1-2 days of Thanksgiving to bleed into Christmas and then bleed into New Year's, and then I'm not starting off the new year on the right foot, right? So I always try and plan like a couple like fun workouts, whether it's a workout class or something with my buddies, get out in the cold, feel the brisk air, right? And just say, okay, I had my couple days, I'm back in my routine for a little bit, and then I'll go on another taper for Christmas, New Year. So nice. Just trying to be very intentional about scheduling in that in-between period has been really beneficial for me.
Yeah, because it's harder when it's cold and when it's dark to be like, okay, I'm going to exercise outside. I'm going to go for a run when it's dark and cold. Like you have to, you can't rely on motivation because there is no motivation when it's cold and dark. So, exactly. You've got to have the habit. So it sounds like you have great habits that you've had for a very long time. So do you even have to, kick yourself out the door, or is it just like,
I do.
You do. Good. People want to hear this.
I am no different than anybody else. I've been on a, crazy nomadic lifestyle for the past 2 years, really. Mm-hmm. So having this home, I think, has been a blessing in the sense that I can really plan working out and food choices in a different way. Ooh. And one of the things that I found that helps me is eliminating the number of excuses I make for myself. Right.
Okay, let's hear that.
So for one, like I used to drive to a gym 15 minutes away. Right. Oh, I'm not sure I have the time for 30 minutes, total traveling. I'm going to skip it. Or if the weather's not good, I don't want to drive in this weather. I'm going to skip it. So what I did was I said, all right, I'm going to buy for $30 on the internet, I'm buy some resistance bands. So that if I'm not feeling up for it to go to the gym or do this or that, I don't need a full on home gym in the house, but I can get a great workout in 30 minutes, calisthenics, resistance bands, and feel really good about that choice. So now I've just eliminated an excuse with travel. Another thing that I'll do oftentimes is I will plan very specific, like fun recipe date nights with Anna.
Ooh.
And the reason I do this is because I so often get in a routine, especially during the holidays, of like, oh, let's just eat leftovers. Let's order in tonight. Let's relax. Let's do this. Let's do that. Whereas if I plan a specific meal, a specific recipe, then I'm learning. I'm excited to try something new versus falling into the habit of like, oh, tonight's just a vegan pizza night. You know what I mean?
Right.
So being very intentional and buying those groceries and be like, oh, I can't let those groceries go bad. I had this planned meal, really limits the excuses I have not to really go out and make something cool that night. So those are some of the strategies that I use to limit some of those excuses and be a little bit healthier during this time of year.
There's a lot of runners and athletes in general that are on the other end of the spectrum. They have zero problems with motivation. They actually have a hard time resting, a hard time taking a day off. They are the ones getting up and running 10 miles before Thanksgiving, that kind of thing. Do you ever lean towards that end at all? Just really
I've
no
done my
excuses?
10K turkey trot. I've done that stuff before. And, my family is not the family that wakes up and says, let's go. Like my family does not really work out in that way. So for me, it's if I'm going to make excuses for a specific workout, how can I do something else productive in my life? So it's, maybe I'm not going to get a workout in, but some of that soil needs to get moved to the barn or into the greenhouse, and doing something active that's also productive that makes me feel good and I use my time effectively always is a mood enhancer for me. I'm not going to necessarily sit down and rot on the couch, although I do love going through like all the old Harry Potter movies during the holidays and, sitting down, watching all those, but diverting. If I'm not going to do a workout, it's like, okay, then what's the next negotiated step down? What am I going to do that's still active, still gets me moving and makes me feel accomplished at the end of the day?
Absolutely. I am the same. I mean, I used to be the type A runner that ran, 70, 90 miles a week and super motivated. And I know that's a story for another day. But now I do my workouts Monday through Friday so that on Saturday and Sunday, I can live life. And for me, that means gardening usually. So usually Saturday and Sundays, I'm out in my yard, whether it's landscaping or doing a little with vegetables. Vegetables will break your heart, but
that they will.
I'm mostly into flowers and trees and making things pretty. But that's my feeling of accomplishment. That's I've got a mountain of mulch in my yard, and that is strength training and cardio. So that's the kind of thing that I like to do on the weekends, because it kind of is like, well, what am I doing all this fitness stuff for anyway? Is it just so that I'm good at the gym or like I can run fast? I mean, at some times in my life, that is true. That's the reason. But actually, it's so I can do the other things in life that I enjoy.
100%, right? I'm training to be the best landscaper I could be, and working out in the yard is a heck of a workout. And sometimes I say, you know what, this is my workout, because moving mulch, moving soil, it's hard work. Cardio, strength training, it will kick your butt.
Yeah. And I get athletes all the time who are like, yeah, I wonder why I was so tired for my run today. I did do a bunch of yard work. And I'm like, yes, you can't take your workouts in a bubble. You have to look at everything, your whole life and look at it holistically, because when you're working in the yard, when you're, hauling stuff around, that is definitely a workout for sure.
I would challenge some of those elite athletes too. It's like, hey, you might be good at CrossFit or this or that. Come garden with me for a day. We'll see how you do.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Okay. So let's talk a little bit more about plant-based stuff. I want to know, what are your favorite dishes? What are you going to be making this year? What do you want to be making? What are you looking forward to? What do you like to cook? The whole thing.
I got a bunch. How much time do you have? But I'll give you three I really love. So one of my favorite vegan creators, Nisha Vora of Rainbow Plant Life, she does one of the best vegan cornbreads ever.
Yeah.
And I used to love cornbread. That was like my nostalgic childhood food that I get at like restaurants and stuff or barbecue places, right? And she does a great recipe that also has great gluten-free substitutes and is gluten-free. So learning to bake like that has been a challenge. So that's one of my favorites to have. People really love it. Another one I love is by my friends Conscious Chris and Sweet Simple Vegan. They do a really great lentil loaf. That was the dish that at Christmas time last year disappeared.
Really? Because that kind of stuff is like, that's the stuff that people make fun of us for, here's the vegan with the lentils.
Here's the loaf.
That's right.
And it was so good, and people really, really just devoured it. And I was kind of bummed. I should have made two, like I said earlier. But that one's always a hit. And then one I want to try differently this year, I think Carly from Plant U had posted about it.
Oh, yeah.
But like a full block of tofu with the cut lines in it, and you marinate it almost like to be like the orange ham, like holiday ham that people make.
Yes.
Looks really good. And that's the one I want to try this year.
Oh, yeah. There's also a YouTube creator, Derek Sarno. I don't know if you know, I forget his, I forget the name of his channel, but he does amazing like bakes and roasts, and he'll do the whole tofu. And we've done it a bunch of times, and it's worth the effort. It's absolutely delicious. Yeah, my thing, I mean, I've done entire Thanksgiving meals, absolutely everything vegan before, using cornbread in the stuffing is my favorite. I love cornbread stuffing. But my thing is pies. So I will make lots of pies, all vegan.
Nice.
Apple,
Pumpkin
chocolate,
pies.
pumpkin,
Fantastic.
Cherry. So I got to decide what I'm bringing. If I should bring apple. Somebody else is doing pumpkin. Should I bring apple or chocolate? Or maybe both? I don't know.
Apple or chocolate?
Yeah.
Oh, man. You've got some tough decisions to make.
I know. It's going to be good. So you're not only vegan, but you also don't drink alcohol. So that's like another like social pressure that you face. So tell us about that. How do you navigate that? Is it the same? Is it similar?
Good question. Something I wrestle with a lot. And, believe it or not, I think almost not drinking coffee is more controversial to people these days.
Probably.
Because I don't drink any caffeine. But growing up, I never drank, and I was very focused on my sports. I played high school basketball and baseball, and I played baseball in college. And I saw my teammates going out and getting hammered on the weekends. And I was a freshman, and I'm watching the guy who's ahead of me, who was another catcher. He was a senior. And I was like, man, he's not waking up on Sunday morning at 8 a.m. and lifting and working out or studying or whatever it is, right? Like, but if I do those things, maybe I'll get an advantage. And it did work out for me. I had a great playing career and really kind of stuck with that mentality when it came to drinking later in life. And I will say 20s, it was hard, right? Almost every social activity revolved around drinking. Now, I will say there's probably in the last like 5 years, I've noticed there's this real counter push against drinking. And if you look at the alcohol sales, it's going down. Now, sales of other substances, I'm sure, are going up, right? But I have so many friends now who say, wow, like I feel great. Like this is how you feel every day. I was like, yep, like this is it. And I think it's become much more socially acceptable, especially when you can fit in with a fun drink. I know when we were in Greece, we did the mocktails, which was super fun. And so many great restaurants now will offer different mocktail options. If I'm holding something, I feel good no matter what, whether I'm at a wedding or a dinner party, something like that. I want to hold something that tastes good, that looks beautiful, and I don't have to worry about the social pressure when I've got something in my hand.
After a short break, I'll be back with more of my conversation with Farmer Nick. I don't know about you, but those heavy, ugly plastic jugs of laundry detergent make no sense to me. You're paying for mostly water, they take up a ton of room in your laundry room, and then you toss the huge plastic jug in the recycling. And did you know that 500 million of those bottles end up in landfills and oceans every single year? That's why I made the switch to Earth Breeze laundry sheets. They come in plastic-free packaging, take up almost no space, and you're not wasting your money paying for watery detergent. It's an easy way to get clean clothes without all that plastic waste. Get 40% off with your subscription at earthbreeze.com/plantedrunner. That's earthbreeze.com/plantedrunner. And we're back with more of my conversation with Farmer Nick.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, at our trip, you did a mocktail class for us. What are some of your tips for making the perfect mocktail?
Perfect mocktail has to start with really great botanicals. And by botanicals, I mean your herb selection. If you're going to throw in some fruit in there, obviously that's great too, but your aromatics, right? I know in our class, we used some different types of mint. We did a little demonstration where we burned rosemary, and you can actually infuse a glass with rosemary smoke, which is cool for if you like the more like old fashioned kind of drinks or bourbon drinks. But start with really great herbs. Have some good juice mixes in there. We use some orange juice and some other citrus, muddle that together. And I don't use a blender as much. I think muddling really releases the flavor and the oils much better than a metal blender would. And then, if you have an option to use some kind of non-alcoholic spirit, that's great. But if not, you can just put in any combination of seltzer, club soda, whatever it might be. It's going to be fresh, it's going to be delicious, and you will not regret it.
Yeah. So we made different kinds. Everybody made their own, and it was fun to see what fruits people were muddling, and which ones tasted better. And it was really fun and festive, and it's kind of similar, I think, to being vegan. Is that it's not about the drink, it's not about the food, it's about having a good time and about having good conversations.
I've never made that connection before, but hearing you say it, it's so obvious. That makes a ton of sense.
Yeah. I mean, do you still, I know you've been both vegan and alcohol free for a long time. Do you still feel like people are trying to pressure you?
It depends on your environment. If I'm out with friends, they know who I am, right? Yeah. I'm not too worried about that, but when I met my father-in-law for the first time and he says, "Hey, come here, son, why don't you grab a beer?" And I was like, those first time moments are a little bit trickier for me. Mm-hmm. I think trickier for anybody,
Yeah.
But once they get familiar with you and they respect your choices and they see, hey, you can be just as fun as a non-alcoholic vegan, which on paper, someone might be like, "Oh my God, it's my worst nightmare to hang out with." But I can go to watch a Yankee game and be just as much fun as anybody else in that kind of environment, So it really depends on who your friends are, who you're meeting for the first time, and what environment you're actually in.
Yeah, I love it. You make it sound so easy. People come to me all the time and they're like, "I struggle staying plant-based. I struggle with knowing what to eat. I don't think I'm getting enough protein." What's your answer? And sometimes that's true. As their coach, they're not. But, what do you say to that?
When people are struggling, my first inclination is always to hit them with a solution. Here's what you could do better. Here's this, here's that. But I started to refrain from that approach. Instead, I say, hey, what are the reasons why you think you're struggling? Is it an emotional reason? Is it a mental thing? Is it a perception? Is it something socially that's causing you to struggle? Getting down to more of that root cause, because rarely are our behaviors just because, we're not disciplined. There's something else in our life that is causing that. This is the former psychology major that's talking right now, right? I want to dig down to the root. And then I want to find something fun for them to do, a challenge, something that they can, get excited about that works within their mindsets. And
like what?
So if someone came to me and said, "I'm struggling being plant-based. I'd ask them a few questions like, hey, like, do you want to come over for dinner? And like, what's a meal that you have wanted to make vegan, but you've never figured it out? And then they'll tell me what it is. And like, let's challenge ourselves. Let's make that. Right. Then we make it a game, a challenge. And it might not come out perfect, right? We don't know. But now we've renewed that sense of joy and fun and excitement that tends to wane with people when it comes to habit forming in that, 30-day range past Veganuary, right? The gym all of a sudden in February is back to normal, after everyone quits, right? So it's about how can we keep that excitement going to actually turn it into a habit that you can't live without versus just something that they're testing out.
Yeah, I love that. That's great. So, one thing that I kind of tell people is on a similar side is to remember why you're doing this. Because usually people, let's face it, if you're going to be vegan, you're going to be 2% of the people. You obviously have some kind of strong motivation, whether it's health, the environment, animals, something else. There's something pulling you there. And, you got to really revisit that. Do you ever think about, are you still thinking about your why, or is it just you've done it so long that you don't even think about it anymore?
I think about my why every single day. And it's easy for me because I work in my why. My work is in the environment. My work is outside with plants, watching what's happening to our planet, right? What more motivation do I need? And when you see the news and you see horrific instances of natural disasters, right, that adds to my why. I don't need to tell you that, right?
No.
so that is my constant reminder. Now, if I worked a 9-to-5 desk job in an industry totally different, I might need to revisit that why a little bit more consciously, But for me, every day, the mission is I am here on this planet to leave it greener than when I found it. And that relates to plants. It relates to what we consume, both from a dietary perspective and a physical goods perspective. And I'm going to do everything in my power to make sure that I stay consistent, because I was a baseball player. Baseball is all consistency. Like you play every day, just like with running, like you're running every day. It's not like football where you get up for one day a week and then you're practicing and have some rest days in between. Like if you're 0 for 4, you're going out the next day, you got to do it again. And in this world of veganism and environmentalism, there's a lot of days where we don't get hits, and there's a lot of losses and a lot of failure. And it can be demoralizing, especially when only 2% of the population is vegan and you might not have a readily available vegan community at your fingertips. So it's tough to stay in that why if you're not living in it. But for me, it's an everyday thing.
Love it. Love it. Yeah. And, community can be found. Like maybe you don't have it in your town. Maybe your friend circle isn't, full of vegans or whatever. But even people, you're listening to this podcast right now, you're a part of a community. There are groups online. There are ways to connect and really find the community that you might not get in person. Is it as good as being in person? Debatable, but it is always there for you. So, people complain about social media and the internet being like this awful terror, but it can be such joyful, connection. Find people all over the world that actually can inspire you. It's amazing.
Got to use it for good, not evil, right?
Yeah.
And for me, one of the things that I did, I don't know if I told you this before, but I host these vegan plant potluck parties.
Ooh, tell us about that.
Lots of peas in there. So I started doing it in New York, and I said, hey, I've got all these plant friends. I've got all these friends who are attached to the plant world in some way, be it environmentalism, they're chefs, they're farmers, they're vegans, whatever. What if I brought them together? Everyone brings a plant-based dish. Everyone brings their own silverware. So there's zero waste. And we just talk about how we can support each other. And I did it for the first time in my New York apartment. I had 12 people. The last potluck I did had 55.
Oh my gosh.
And this is like the 10th one. And all of these people come from different plant adjacent fields, but they're not all vegan, but they come together and they're willing to do it because of the community. And there's a bunch of vegans there. I met Lauren Toyota, Hot for Food. She came to one of my potlucks, right? That's how we got connected. And you just bring these people together in just a fun environment where they're all trying to support each other. No one cares that it's a vegan event. In fact, they're like, oh my God, this food's incredible.
Yeah.
Like, and when you bring together people in the plant world, usually they can cook pretty well, especially if they're gardeners, So
absolutely.
yeah, it makes a whole big difference. So
yeah,
doing those kind of conscious, intentional, planned events has been amazing in my life. And now moving here to Michigan, yeah, it's not vegan capital like LA or New York is.
Right.
But you better believe I'm going to have a plant potluck party at the house.
Yeah.
I'm going to invite other creators and people who are working at the community gardens, this, and that. They're all going to come and they're going to have a great time.
Yeah.
And that's my goal.
I love that. I love that. So speaking of gardening and greenhouses, I can't help it. So what are you going to be growing? Are you going to be, it's end of November, it's December, and you're in Michigan. So for people who don't know, who might be from, another country, Michigan is cold and snowy. You do have a greenhouse, but are you going to be able to have a winter garden?
Great question. So right now, the greenhouse is not fully operational just yet. Mm-hmm. We're sealing up some cracks. We're replacing some windows. We're making sure we can get heat in there properly. So we're going to be able to get a crop probably started in late December. And I'm going to start hydroponically. Growing hydroponically is one of my favorite things to do. I don't have to worry about soil because you grow everything in these little grow cups that have water recycled through the system. And it's ideal for leafy greens and herbs. Yeah. Leafy greens and herbs, for anyone who says, oh, I don't like lettuce. I'm like, no, you don't like lettuce that's been in transport for a week and a half and traveled 1,000 miles. Right. That's the lettuce you don't like. You haven't had lettuce right off the plant before. So those are the things that do really well in a cooler environment with less sun anyway. But my larger plans for the greenhouse are going to revolve around all the things I could grow in LA that I can't grow in Michigan. So I'm going to have a loquat tree, a kumquat tree, Meyer lemons, macadamia nut tree, right? All these cool things that are more tropical varieties. I can have those in my greenhouse and really make it not just something that produces food, but also very botanically beautiful as well.
I love it. I love it. Yeah, I don't have a greenhouse. I've always wanted one, but I do have almost a greenhouse sunroom, which is my office.
This is great.
Yes, but it's north facing. So it's, nice for plants and it's nice for my office, studio, because the sun doesn't directly shine on me. So that's always nice. But yeah, I'm a little bit spoiled, but I can't grow tomatoes in here. That's for sure.
No, I see some, what is that? You got some philodendron behind you, some pothos perhaps?
Yes, lots of philodendron, pothos. I'm an aroid person, so that's some of my favorite plants. You can't see them all, but I got a big plant wall of all sorts of nonsense going on.
I love it.
Yes. Yeah, it's great. Well, I think it's about time to kind of wrap things up, Nick. So any last tips for Thanksgiving, Christmas, for the holidays, things that you would love to say to a brand new vegan?
A brand new vegan. Don't put too much pressure on yourself, right? Don't say to your family, I'm going to make the entire meal. I'm going to do this. Take it easy, right? This is about you and your happiness just as much as it's about spending time with family. And I don't want your newfound veganism to cause a problem or to be stressful for you. Make something delicious for yourself. Make something easy. Don't take on too much. Be prepared for some comments here and there. Practice what you want to say at times. If you know you've got that one uncle who's going to say something just to be provocative, right? Be prepared, enjoy it, eat some delicious food, and know that you are doing something that is great for the animals, the planet, and your health.
I love it, Nick. So tell everybody where they can find you if they want to reach out or connect with you.
Yes, it's Farmer Nick on Instagram and TikTok. I've got farmernick.com where I've got lots of helpful blog posts as it relates to sustainability and veganism. And of course, very holiday focused right now on the blog. And then if you have kiddos who are interested in plants and sustainability, Farmer Nick Jr. is my fun little kids show where I dress up as a plant and talk to myself about all these different plant projects. And season 3, which is coming out next, I think we're going to come out with that next fall, is actually going to be about food and plant-based eating.
Yay.
So stay tuned for that.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Nick, for being here. It's really great to see you again. And I'm so glad to have a chance to talk to you about plant-based eating in the holidays.
Thanks for having me on, Claire. Appreciate it.
And now it's time for the Mental Strength Minute. Fortify your mind in 60 seconds or less. Today's topic is Sharpie goals. When you're in the middle of a tough race, it will get harder and harder to remember to stay focused on your goals. Your brain is telling you one thing, and your promises to yourself might start to slip away. A very simple way to keep your eye on the prize is to write down your goals with a Sharpie on your hand or on your arm. This could be your A, B, and C time goals, or it could be something more process related. My struggle in the marathon was always staying strong past mile 20. So my Sharpie goal was the words Brave 10K. During the final push, when I wanted to slow down, my Sharpie goal reminded me to keep going strong. Thank you for listening to The Planted Runner, part of the Evergreen Podcast Network. Don't forget that you can win free access to one of my Sprint Session masterclasses just for writing an Apple Podcast review. So be sure to write yours right after your run today. Reviews are the #1 way to boost this show's reach, and it's a great way to tell me what you'd like to hear next because I read every single one. Have a great run today.
Women's Running Stories, where we explore the intersection between running and life. Because every woman who is committed to a running journey has a story to tell, and this is where you'll find those stories. I am host and producer Cherie Louise Turner. I'm a 53-year-old runner, and together with original music by musician and runner Cormac O'Regan, we bring these inspirational stories to life. Please join us to fuel your adventures.